One of the most prolific series from the HD generation has to be Assassin's Creed. In each entry, players are pushed into historic dramas and shadowy conspiracies that require violent solutions, as the Knights Templar and the Assassins continue their millennia-spanning clandestine war. And yet, for all of its globe hopping, there's been one area that's been notably avoided all this time: Japan. For over a decade and a half, fans have chimed in that ninjas and samurai would fit in perfectly with the franchise's aesthetic and lore, but this suggestion has been batted away as too predictable, and having played over 40 hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows, as well as numerous other games in the series, I can confirm the general tone of Knights vs. Templars is all but gone, instead replaced by a compelling stealth action game that, yes, feels quite a bit like Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima, or really a number of games, because as any pop culture historian can tell you, Japan has had a disproportional influence on the culture of video games. It was unavoidable that this latest translation of samurai sword fighting or ninja stealth slaying, regardless of franchise, would share many of the mechanical and aesthetic qualities of games past. But was it worth the trade? That's what we're going to get into. And to start, we have to discuss how modern Assassin's Creed games represent the culture of the environments they recreate. The oldest games and even some newer efforts like Mirage wedged historic flashpoints with a greater overarching narrative. But ever since 2017's Assassin's Creed Origins, the open world has taken a much greater emphasis. I mean, we're talking about games that give you MMO-style auto-walking to the next objective. That's how big the worlds have gotten. In fact, you could argue these locations are better utilized in the post-launch educational modes than the main game, which is all a pretext to say, my goodness, this game is steeped in respect for the traditions of Japan. In one section, protagonist Naoe, raised in a secluded rural area with her clan, is taught the etiquette and purpose of the tea ceremony, first through training and again through a mission. Even the main progression system, the unlockable abilities, are gated by levels achieved through visiting shrines and learning details by paying respects. There's clearly no malice intended. This was a good faith effort. And really, that's the simple danger of historic fiction. It's the same reason the real-life Pinkertons became upset with Rockstar over Red Dead Redemption 2. Throughout Shadow's story, you'll encounter historic figures with detailed biographies all of their own. And yes, on occasions, they will be your targets. That may sound at odds with the previous recreation of a tea ceremony, but it only spikes the absurd dynamic of violence and decorum living side by side. Mechanically speaking, the biggest change for Assassin's Creed Shadows is in its use of dual protagonists. Unlike other games in the series past like Syndicate, the difference between the two are striking. There's plenty of character and backstory, of course, but speaking just as a game, I found myself enjoying the variety of a weapons-heavy power tank or the much weaker, stealthier character with a robust toolset to even the odds. The real-life Yasuke is mostly shrouded in lore and mystery. I'm talking historians estimate where he was before appearing in Japan and after. And after the fall of his Lord Nobunaga, he essentially vanished. He's a fantastic protagonist for Assassin's Creed, allowing the developers to play with his search for the traitors of Nobunaga. And yet, it's Naoe's story that is the far more political of the two. Yasuke's outsider status inspires some curiosity, but Naoe is often ridiculed as an ignorant farm girl, even while sharing a formal setting. It's interesting to experience a ninja epic from the lower end of the class system, especially as Naoe's clan was wiped out, including her father, by a mysterious group of masked enemies. Uncovering the true face of these monsters scattered throughout society keeps the narrative interesting. Except, it doesn't feel anything like an Assassin's Creed game. Yeah, there's certainly hints and plot devices that come from the greater universe. But if you know absolutely nothing about an animus or what a piece of Eden does, this is actually a pretty great starting point for newcomers. And sure, these same points can be made for Odyssey and Valhalla, but however tangentially related they were, they felt a part of the grander story. Japan, on the other hand, wasn't simply an island, it was a culture extremely skeptical of the outside world, embracing isolation for centuries. The developers could have picked the later Meiji period for more convenient international connections, but ultimately I feel they picked the more interesting direction. And the same goes for the hard dividing gameplay. Yes, Yasuke can do stealth if you try really hard, but it's a pretty big waste of time when you can simply beat down a group with a club or cut down countless bandits with a katana. The parry and duck system is far more balanced to keep timing tight, although it's nowhere near as polished as, say, Ghost of Tsushima, but there's enough weapon variety with different poison and bleeding effects, as well as enough pushback by enemy AI to keep the head-on encounters interesting. interesting. Likewise, Naoe can go toe-to-toe against multiple enemies, but it's not a very good idea. Still, she might be the single most capable infiltrator in this series so far simply for her grappling hook and crawling ability. Just from a timing perspective, she's much faster than her foes, able to quickly sprint away from danger and regroup for the next fight. Like the other modern Creed games, you're never more than a few steps away from some sort of activity. In fact, the game is so super served with content, the newest DLC, Claws of Awaji, is getting middling reviews simply for being more of the same well-produced missions and activities. Frankly, it's a little hard to imagine any additional content could make a difference. But hey, Odyssey kept things interesting, so we'll have to wait and see. What really sells it all together is Shadow's incredible visuals. Although speaking from personal experience, I found many of the updates delivered over the past 6 months have mostly improved the game's graphics and performance. This gameplay was captured on the PC version of the game at 2K resolution, 60 frames per second with the graphics cranked nearly all the way up. And yes, this is mostly achieved with the help of Nvidia's DLSS. Sure, on occasion you'll notice some crispy artifacting, but I found myself impressed with the pixel-dense presentation. One of the default graphical options removes the custom costumes you can use in cutscenes, but clearly the odd clipping launch issues have been resolved as I didn't notice any visual errors. In fact, I would say one of the highlights of Shadows is watching your changing looks appear in the story events. The armors and silks are really elaborate and beautiful designs, and seeing them in these different camera angles ties the story and gameplay together. So make sure to head into the graphics options and make that change before starting a new game. In conclusion, Shadows doesn't feel anything like an Assassin's Creed game, and yes, that even includes the more recent open world entries. Eagle perches and wrist blades aside, these mechanics are fairly standard to open worlds. But when the quality is this good, does it really matter? Personally speaking, not one bit. In fact, it's kind of a relief. Assassin's Creed is entering its second decade, and sometimes these sorts of grand narratives start losing their significance by making every single entry a crucial plot point for everything before and after. Shadows doesn't even try that, instead focusing on being a good historic open world game. And in that respect, it absolutely succeeds. Assassin's Creed Shadows is currently available on PC and Mac, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series S and X. If you've had a chance to play it, chat back in the comments about what you thought, especially if you played the DLC Claws of Awaji. Keep clicking around here at Game Rant, and we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody!